Right then, that's kettle boiled. I decided I've been watching a few other folks' videos, and there's lots of these YouTubers that start the videos and they're making themselves an artisan coffee from some elaborate coffee machine using beans they've bought down at the in the village at the local deli, and they like to tell you about how nice the beans are and what they are and where they've sourced them, etc. So I thought I ought to get in on the act. Problem is I don't like drinking coffee, so I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. I always like to have a cup of tea when I'm doing a video, and my preference is Yorkshire tea, as you can see. So I'm going to make myself a cup of tea, and then we'll get upstairs in office, and I'll get on with next episode of Tales from the Showroom Floor. So, but while that's mashing, let me just introduce what we're going to be doing. So yeah, for my next Tales from the Showroom Floor, basically I've got 3 stories I want to share with you. I'm going to talk about tyres. Now don't worry, because if you want to cause a division amongst motorcyclists, just ask them about tyres. You know, you get 100 motorcyclists in the room, you're going to get 100 opinions about tyres. No, it's not one of them sort of videos. I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to share 3 stories that are tyre related. The first one, lo and behold, is another customer complaint. Second one, it's one of those oh my god stories. And the third one is what I would call you've got to be there story. So, right, finish mashing this tea and then we'll go off upstairs into office. Just a splash of milk and we can go on with video. Cracking. Right then, come on, let's get in office and we can do this proper. Now we've got us tea. Excuse me. Can't beat a good cup of tea. Right, as I mentioned while we were making tea, I've got three stories to share with you that relate to tyres. The company I worked for had a reputation for being one of the go-to locations to get a good deal on replacement tyres or over-the-counter sales. We also did a lot of mail order back in the day. Sold a lot of tyres. In fact, I was doing a bit of research for something else, to be fair. And when I was running the tyre warehouse, during the summer period, we could sell 500 tyres a week. Mail order mainly, but a good percentage, probably 15-20% of those would also be on bike fits. And the first story that I've got, it's another customer complaint story. Yeah, you pick up a few if you've been in the trade a while, but it relates to somebody that had got a complaint about a tyre that they allegedly had fitted. And it's not one I was directly involved in. I was working in the sales department. I think I was sales manager again at this time. But when there's something going off in the business, shall we say, even if it's round the back where the workshop was, you tend to pick up, you get the vibes that there's a situation occurring. And yes, we got the vibes. And I sort of went to see if I needed to get involved a little bit, as quite often happened, towards the end of the incident. And I think it was all sorted by the time I got involved. But basically, a customer had come in with a loose wheel, a tyre, and was having his first point of contact was probably one of the apprentice mechanics who tended to be on tyre fitting duty, and he literally walked straight up to whoever was on tyre fitting duty that day and started having a rant about this tyre that we'd sold them that was faulty, and he demanded that we do something about it, because it was all our fault, because he bought this tyre off us quite recently, I think within the last week or so. So the workshop manager quickly gets involved to because he's heard the kerfuffle, and basically, you know, ask the customer what the problem is, and then we can try and do something about sorting it for you. And the customer presents the workshop manager with a front wheel, which has got quite a pronounced bulge in the tyre. And there's quite obviously something inside it. And the customer basically said, yes, you've fitted this tyre and you've left something in it and it's damaged my tyre and it's damaged my wheel. And it was a fairly new tyre. So the workshop manager's like, right, okay, says, look, calm down. Let's get, first thing, get one of the mechanics on and get the tyre off, find out what it is that's caused the damage to the tyre, and then we'll sit down and come up with a solution for you. And customers obviously, as they do, demanding his money back and demanding recompense for the wheel if it's damaged and for his time and his fuel, and you know, we used to get that all the time. Anyway, workshop manager takes the customer to one side while the mechanic sets about taking the tyre off, and he breaks the bead, takes the first bead off. Lo and behold, inside the tyre is a spanner. Small one, 10 mil, 12 mil, something like that, but a spanner has been left inside the tyre, which obviously the initial thought was, oh yeah, somebody's made a big cock up here. Okay, but I think at the time the mechanic that was doing it looked at the spanner and it was a cheap, possibly the sort of spanner you get in a motorcycle toolkit, but it was a cheap obscure make of spanner. And most of the mechanics, in fact, it was sort of par for the course, to be fair. They were all in hock to snap on, as mechanics around the world tend to be. So it would be unusual for a mechanic in a busy motorcycle workshop to be using cheaper tools, shall we say. But it happens, and we had them kicking around for doing odd jobs and that. So workshop manager, due diligence, ask the customer if he got proof of purchase so that we can bring it up on the computer and organise either a replacement or a refund or whatever. The customer hadn't got any proof of purchase. So workshop manager is like, can you remember when you bought it? And it was sort of a weekend, 10 days ago, whatever. Okay, let's go round to the counter and we'll bring it up on the computer. So takes the customer's details. I mean, back in those days we were still on doc matrix printers, etc. But the computer did keep records of sales, etc. And once we got a date, we could find the invoice number because the tyre had been fitted by the workshop. Even if it was a loose wheel fit, there would have been a job card raised. So the workshop manager was able to go through the records and finds the job card. And has a look at it, confirms the customer's details, confirms that is happy that that's the date he bought the tyre. Yeah. Says, oh. Workshop manager looks at the customer and says, just one problem. Customer's like, what's that? We sold and fitted a rear tyre for you. You brought us a front wheel with a front tyre. We've no record of fitting that tyre. But again, the customer suddenly, I think, again, it's one of those penny drops moments and realises, deep intake of breath, most apologetic, his mate had fitted his front tyre for him. He'd bought one, not from us, I don't know where he got it from, but he bought a front tyre because he got home with the rear and realised his front was needing replacing as well. So he got hold of a front tyre and his mate had fitted it. Yeah. Instant karma really, I suppose, but he was on that occasion most apologetic, but yes, you get them all the time. Which leads me on to the second story I'm going to share with you. I mean, over the years I worked in the tyre warehouse. I was manager in the tyre warehouse mail order operation for the best part of 3 years, but obviously I was in the showroom for nearly 20, on and off and at different locations. So over the years you see and hear some absolutely amazing stories about things that have been left in tyres, things that have been found in tyres, things that have caused punctures and been still stuck in the tyre when the customers come to a halt to check it out. And my second story is probably the most amazing thing that I've ever known and ever heard of being found inside a tyre. And it relates to, it was a customer with one of the Honda GL 1500 Goldwings, Honda Goldwing customer. It was a regular customer. I think he'd bought the bike from us, but I'm not sure. But it was a regular customer, and he was one of those customers that he got the bike and he did do quite a lot of miles on it, regular trips to Europe. And this particular incident came on the back of him and his and fellow Goldwing owners had just done a tour of Europe, a couple of weeks or maybe a bit longer, touring around Europe. And they were on their way home. Luckily, it was the last day of their holiday, and they're sort of heading back towards the ferry port, where they're catching the ferry to come home. When, as happens unfortunately, he suddenly felt the bike, the handling of the bike start to go a little bit awry, rolled to a halt to find that his back tyre's flat. They managed, luckily they were carrying one of those puncture repair kits with them that has the plug that you can temporarily block the hole with, that you glue in place, and then I think they come with a couple of compressed air CO2 canisters so that you can then get some air back into the tyre. And he managed to get the tyre inflated enough to limp to somewhere to put proper pressure in it. And basically they took the time coming home. He says, you know, even though most of the route home was A roads and motorways, they were taking it quite steady. He didn't want that repair to fail. But they got home, and his first job once they got home and got everything unpacked and that and settled was to bring the bike into us for us to take the wheel out and have a look at replacing the tyre for him. I think he was quite happy to put another tyre on, which is generally the advice. Some tyres can be repaired, but especially one that had been ridden maybe underinflated for quite a distance, then the best advice is to have it taken off and inspected and generally replaced. And because of the nature of the bike, he was happy to put another tyre on. So we've got the bike up on the bench, wheel out onto the tyre fitting machine. Again, mechanic breaks the bead, looks to try and see if he can find any evidence of what's caused the puncture to make sure there's nothing still in there. And he'd noticed that there was a bit of a rattle, so he suspected that whatever had caused the puncture was still inside the tyre. Again, I think on this occasion, still in sales, and was in the showroom when the mechanic came through looking for the customer to show him what he'd found inside the tyre. He took the customer to the counter and held up a spent 7.62mm bullet, as was NATO issue at the time. We found out subsequently. But yeah, he holds up this spent bullet, so it's just the business end of the bullet, if you like, that he's taken out of the tyre. And you could see the customer, and his wife was with him as well, you could see them both go visibly pale. Turns out that they were travelling down one of those idyllic roads that you see in all the videos or the pictures of France, where it's a long straight road lined by poplar trees or whatever, but they had passed a couple of signs that were warning them of a NATO live fire exercise taking place in the vicinity, and they could hear gunfire in the distance. Now at the time I think they were of the opinion that it was a bullet that had gone astray and had managed somehow to reach as far as the road that had gone through the back tyre. It could have been one that had gone astray, been picked up and dropped on the road and been flicked up and gone through the tyre. Hope it's the latter. But yes, as I say, that customer went visibly pale when we held up the bullet and showed him what we found inside the tyre. And to this day, it is probably one of the strangest items that we found in a tyre. So yes, which brings me around to, I said I've got 3 stories for you. The third one is, I think I referred to it as you'd got to be there, one of those moments where you're listening into a conversation and you reach a point where you can't believe what you've just heard, and you're like, what? And I was actually warehouse manager at that time for the tyre department, tyre warehouse, which was across the road from the back of the showroom down at Marshgate. And basically, I was sat in the sales office where we took the telephone calls and where we did all the invoicing and everything, ready to post tyres out or whatever. And a customer came into the counter. So I'm carrying on with my work when my colleague stood up to go and find out what this customer was wanting. It was a customer that was known to us, a regular. And Jamie, I'm sure Jamie will not mind me mentioning his name, even on this occasion, went up to the counter and, as you do, how can I help you? What can we do for you? And basically the customer had come in, he'd got his bike booked in for a tyre fitting, rear tyre. And he wasn't quite sure what he wanted. So the workshop had said, go across to the tyre warehouse, have a word with them, they'll advise you, let you have a look at what they think's best for what you're needing, and then they'll get it sent across and we'll fit it for you. So the customers that stood there, and we used to get it all the time, customers would want to look at tyres. I don't know what they were going to ascertain from looking at a tyre. I mean, we had the regular sticking their thumbnail into the rubber, oh that's a sticky one or whatever. Doesn't really work that way, but anyway. And Jamie, he'd been selling tyres longer than I'd been working there. Jamie had been in the tyre department most of his life with the company, and he'd been with the company nearly as long as me. So he was the expert, if you like, when it came to tyres rather than myself. I knew enough. But so Jamie starts, rather than going into the warehouse and fetching out 6, 7, 8 tyres for a customer to look at, again, he goes through a bit of a gentle interrogation of the customer, shall we say, to find out what it is he's wanting, what he thinks he needs. And so first thing he's asking him is, what bike have you got? And he'd got a Honda Fireblade, one of the earlier ones. And okay, and what tyre have you got on at the moment? Oh, it's still on the original tyres. All right, so what are you looking for? And the customer's like, well, I'm not really happy about how many miles I've got out of the tyre. I'm looking for something that's going to last a little bit longer. Now, bear in mind that this is probably somewhere in the 90s, but even then, radial tyres on motorcycles had not been around that long. And in the early days, they were a stepping stone improvement, milestone improvement in handling, grip, etc. over what we'd had before. But back in those days, they tended not to last very long. And on a sports bike like a Fireblade, 2,500 miles, 3,000 miles, if you were really pushing it, was good mileage. And we would have customers that would come in, and it was almost like a badge of honour that they managed to destroy a rear tyre in less than 1,000 miles, and it happened regularly. So Jamie asked the question, you're wanting something that's going to last a little bit longer. How many miles have you got out of this one, sir? And the customer replied, 8,000. There was a pause, a silent pause, and I've turned around to listen to a conversation, and I could see Jamie's face, very poker-faced, but I could see he was fighting back what he really wanted to say, and lost the battle, I think, because he turned round to the customer, deadpan, and said, have you considered buying an FJ 1200, sir? Again, a moment's silence. The customer realised what he'd just said, and the customer laughed, Jamie laughed. I'm biting the desk at this moment in time to stop myself absolutely, literally I'm holding it all in. And the customer again just looked at Jamie and said, so 8,000 miles, is that good? And Jamie's like, that's brilliant. He says, I don't know what you've been doing to get 8,000 miles out of a tyre. He says, but most of our customers struggle to get half of that. The customer's like, oh, okay then. you best give me another one of those, whatever's on it then. And I think at the time that I think the Hondas tended to come with Bridgestones, so it was probably a BT50 or something like that, which Jamie Julie got off the shelf and walked back across to the showroom or back to the workshop with the customer, and hopefully he went away happy chappy. So yeah, 3 more tales from the showroom floor. So maybe get a few more in. I'm hoping that we're going to get some riding videos, and we'll do some touring around up into the Dales or down into Derbyshire again. But the weather's looking like it's going to drop cold again apparently in the next few days, so we'll see. But for now, thanks for listening, thanks for watching. As always, I am the Barnsley Biker. Please like, please subscribe, but also please turn on them notifications so you know when there's another one coming along. And until next time, I'll see you.